Assalamu alaikum, welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 18th of August, 2023. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, joined by Zaffar Iqbal Saab, and we're beaming out live to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas, and also to the good people of the UK through our partner stations across the nation. Welcome to Friday Night Live. We have a two-hour action-packed show where we'll be talking about the A-level results that just came out yesterday. So we'll be talking to some special guests on that topic in a very, very short moment. But also we're talking about the Pakistani 76th Independence Day, which happened a few days ago. Yes, it is the independence anniversary of Pakistan, but we're asking the question, what happened when more than 100 people have been arrested in the eastern Pakistan city after thousands of Muslims basically burned churches and vandalized homes? Is that part of Pakistani independence? We'll be speaking to Professor Zaffar Khan in the studio, and also Omar Salahuddin Khan, who is a presenter on Inspire FM and also a very passionate Pakistani. Stay tuned for that. Also coming up at 7 o'clock, we're asking the question if the Taliban are doing a good job in Afghanistan, and are they doing a good job for the rest of the world? We'll be speaking to an expert and journalist on them around an hour's time. And also finally, we'll be ending tonight's show with the Umrah topic. So lots of you hopefully have had a chance to go on Umrah post-COVID. Some of you may not have, and some of you may be hearing some news about the latest goings on in Saudi Arabia, and what are your options for doing Umrah for the rest of this year and also going into 2024. Stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about Umrah, what's it looking like, and is it getting easier to get a visa and to fly to Saudi Arabia? So all these topics and more. Don't forget, we also have Guest the Voice today, sponsored by Benjamin's. That's right, Benjamin's Cafe is sponsoring Guest the Voice today, so you can win a dessert or a meal for two at that place. They're at benjaminscafe.co.uk. We're giving away a meal for two in the form of desserts if you can guess our three voices correctly. Listen out for those voices coming up in a bit and on tonight's show. But this is Friday Night Live, and of course, joining me in the studio right now is Zaffar Saab. Zaffar Saab, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu.
I've got to say that Zaffar Saab, it is an exciting show today. Most notably, for multiple reasons, but one of those reasons is actually because I want to just you to hear this. What was that? What was that?
It's the.
Hang on, I can't hear you.
The Qawmi Trana.
Hang on, say that again.
It's the Qawmi Trana of Pakistan.
The Qawmi Trana. Well, I don't know what that means, man. You're gonna have to tell us. What does that mean?
It's the national anthem, isn't it?
All right, I want to hear it one more time. That's right, it is the Pakistani national anthem, and Pakistan celebrated its 76th Independence Day a few days ago on the 14th of August.
I think the anthem should just stop at Pak Sar Zameen Shad Badan, not beyond that.
But I noticed you're not wearing green today. Why not? Are you not celebrating Pakistani Independence Day?
I'm a British citizen, man.
Oh man! Oh,
I'm living in England. I'm living in Luton, mate.
But anyone who's watching on the Facebook Live and also on YouTube Live can see the teddy bear at least is wearing a green T-shirt behind you.
That's the Inspire green T-shirt, man.
All right. Well, clearly Zaffar isn't getting into the
You're not wearing
spirit.
one either, mate.
I know. I'm not celebrating Pakistan Independence Day. It was 4 days ago. But anyway, that's all good. But let's go on to our first topic, because this is a really important topic, and it is on the A-level results, which actually came out yesterday. Some of you may have been celebrating, some of you may not have been celebrating, especially with friends and family that have received their grades yesterday. That's right, A-level grades awarded in England have shown their biggest drop after results plummeted across the board, in line with the government's policy of enforcing a return to pre-pandemic grading. And private and grammar schools also had the largest drop in top grades compared with last year. However, it has not made up for the disproportionate boost in grades those types of schools had during the pandemic. Now, exam chiefs have confirmed that there were 67,000 fewer A and A-star grades this year compared to 2022, but 26,000 more than in 2019. So what is going on, and is this a cause for celebration? Because if you look at across the nations in the UK, in Wales and Scotland, they actually enjoyed slightly higher grades still on average, whereas those in England still have seen a disproportionately lower number of grades than the rest of the UK. So I'd be curious to know what my guests on the line think, and I'm going to go straight to them right now, because on the line we are delighted to be joined by a couple of people. We're joined by Altaf Hussain, who's the principal of Luton Sixth Form College. Delighted to have him on the line. He just waved at us, and let me wave back at him as well. Well, Salam Altaf, thanks for joining us. We're also joined on the line by David Seaton, who's Assistant Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the University of Bedfordshire. So let me welcome him as well. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you all.
Thank you so much for joining us. So let me start with you, Altaf Hussain, Principal of Luton Sixth Form College. How did your cohort this year do in their results? Tell our numbers, please.
Well, Abdul, I think my sat nav must be going wrong, because we must be in Wales and Scotland, because we booked the trend in Luton. So as nationally we experienced a 9% drop across the country, we experienced a 6% increase. So 44% high grades.
Wow.
That, in terms of context, that means 1,892 exam entries, and 853 of them were high grades, either A stars or B. Our BTEC students, 68% high grades.
Wow.
And also, a lot of the parents will be listening, want to send their young people to us to study biology, English language, chemistry, law. So let me give you some figures, Abdul, because lots of people say, well, we did really well, but let me give you the figures to back that up. So with biology, our pass rate was 99.4%. Our high grades were 53%. English language, 100% pass rate, 49% high grades. Law, 97% pass rate, 45% high grades. Economics, 98% pass rate, 54% high grades. And what that means is exactly that many of our young people got their first choice at university, and David and I have had lots of conversations about what we're trying to do is prepare them for their next step. And bearing in mind that 2/3 of Year 11s choose Luton Sixth Form College every year, that is great for the University of Beds, the University of Hearts, in terms of that progression. But also there is a strap line in terms of step forward about Love Luton. Our young people were asked to step forward. They did that exactly over the last 4 years. And yesterday they booked the trend. The government were trying their best to push down grades, to do whatever they needed to do. And do you know what? Luton young people, they do their stuff. They didn't listen to the government. They said, you know what? We are going to make our parents proud. And I really get that feeling with our young people. They're motivated by high grades, but they're motivated more about being able to look after their parents and actually financially support them. And I think that grit and that motivation really came through. It's been tough for them, but I couldn't be any prouder. So, that's the figures for you.
Really let me say this as well. I mean, the students can do a lot of the work, and students have obviously pulled out the stops and done the work, and clearly have achieved some nice milestones there versus the rest of the UK and bucked the trend. But it's also down to you, dare I say, and your staff. I think a lot of the students, I'm sure, would say that their teaching staff have been very helpful. You, in a leadership position as principal of Sixth Form College in Luton, have done a fantastic job. But just a quick question for you before I go to David Seaton at the University of Bedfordshire. How have you managed to turn the school around and the sixth form around? What have you done, and what have you seen when you started leading at Luton Sixth Form versus where you are today? You must be really proud yourself of the achievements of you and your staff.
Well, I was lucky to come from a very strong baseline. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been the top performing sixth form college in Bedfordshire. If you look at the DFE performance tables, we've been at the top there. That isn't always actually kind of out there, but the data speaks for itself. So I've been lucky that there's been a legacy. We've been around for 55 years, so we've got a track record. So if there's any football supporters there, we're the Liverpool as opposed to the Manchester City. Now I'll stop there because I'm a Liverpool supporter. We've got that track record of 55 years of outstanding education. But can I just give a shout out to the teachers in schools, families, and the teachers and the families in schools, my teachers, the teachers at the University of Bedfordshire, people like David, every one of us shows leadership every single day in the lounge, in the family home, in the classroom. So we're but one part of a cog, and it's all about what's in the best interest of our young people. So, many of our young people, if they live and are born in Luton, they will come back after they've gone to university, and they will become doctors at Luton and Dunstable Hospital. They will become dentists. They will have to become artists and engineers. So in terms of the economic regeneration of Luton, this is great news. Luton played their first game in the Premier League. The Lionesses are going to the World Cup final. And then my students, Luton young people, smashed it out the park on Thursday. So it's brilliant for everybody.
It is fantastic. And by the way, you mentioned the Lionesses. They're going to be, you can watch the Lionesses at Wardown Park as well. It's going to be a pop-up excitement with Luton Council doing all of that. So you can, following the successful screening of Luton Towns, you can actually watch the appearance of the Lionesses from 10 a.m. onwards in plenty of time for the 11 a.m. kickoff as well. That's completely free, and that's sponsored by the airport company Luton Rising. There's also going to be plenty of parking in Pope's Meadow day of the game as well. So yeah, absolutely exciting stuff there. So do attend that at Wardown Park. It all happens from 10 a.m. onwards with plenty of parking in Pope's Meadow opposite. So let me, on that note, thank you for that information. Altaf Hussain, still a line. I'll come back to you in a moment, but let me go to David Seaton, Assistant Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the University of Bedfordshire. And David, my question specifically to you, my first question is specifically around the social mobility part and the growing disparity between the most and least well off. And it is clear that the gap between private and state schools in England closed, but private pupils are still far, far ahead. I mean, looking at the results that Altaf was just giving out, these are great results. And it's nice to see that we do have, government sponsored sixth forms doing well relatively, but if you compare these results to private schools, there's still a heaven and earth difference between the two, despite these really strong achievements. David, what say you on that, and what's been your experience of that disparity that we're observing still, even in this year's results?
Yeah, so, firstly, I want to say a massive congratulations to all students. I think, every student has done incredibly well. And we have to remember that this was the first cohort that coming through that didn't take formal GCSE exams. And so actually they did incredibly well. And, as an institution, we are congratulating our applicants on achieving their place here. In terms of sort of, private school, independent school, I mean, I've worked in higher education for about 22 years now. And I think, that, there has always been that big divide, but you are absolutely right. It is getting smaller, but there is still a long way to go. But what I was really encouraged to hear with Altaf was, firstly, the results coming from Luton sixth form, but actually what we are beginning to see now is that sort of that trend happening more and more, particularly with colleges such as Altaf's and Luton Sixth Form College, where every year we are seeing the grades go up and up and up. And I think it's only a matter of time really before that gap is getting even narrower moving forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that's a really optimistic outlook, and I really hope that gap continues to close. I think one of the challenges, and I'd love to hear Altaf Hussain's feedback here, is one of the challenges, especially with attracting the best and brightest teachers. And I've been a teacher myself, by the way. So right now, I'm not actually a teacher, but I'm a qualified teacher. I qualified back in 2004. After I'd completed my degree, I did 1 year's worth of work. And then I was like, no, I want to be a teacher. And I have a first class degree in computer science. I did really well in my A-levels and at university. I've gone through a state education. I never was sent to an independent or private school, but I was lucky to come out of a Russell Group university with a first class degree in computer science. And I went on to have a fantastic career. And I'm grateful to the good Lord and my parents and my friends and family for supporting me. However, I consider myself very lucky. Yes, I was proactive, but I consider myself very lucky for the life that I've had and the career that I've had and the education that I've received, basically complementary from the education and tax that we all pay. However, Altaf is saying, what is your plan to ensure that, for example, Luton sixth form and the awesome results that you've achieved? And again, I do want to say what David Seaton just said is, congratulate you and congratulate your students and your staff for the massive 6% plus achievement beyond the national grades that we're seeing. That said, would you accept that there is still more work to do in order to ensure that Luton sixth form is at the very top of the national grades that we see, and how are you going to get there? What can you do to even go beyond? I'm sure you're one of those people that is never satisfied and you want to achieve further, just like your students. What is your game plan? What would your advice be to others that are seeking to also achieve higher than their current targets, which is a great trajectory, by the way?
I think first is never forget your roots. So I'm a working class lad, really. I think my kids once upon a time told me, well, you're no longer a working class lad person, you're a middle class principal. I'm thinking, no. My parents came from Pakistan. They came here with nothing. They had a few priorities. They wanted to put food on the table. They wanted to give me the best education that they can. And that still is deeply rooted in me. So I'll never forget my roots in terms of after the community that I serve. My ego is secondary in terms of the best interests of our young people in Luton. Secondly, I think David is absolutely right, but funding, I think there's a plea for government ministers listening. You talk about private and grammar schools, Abdul, and I've got no issue about parents who work hard to send their kids to private schools. I've got no problem with all that. But people need to understand that the average fee for a private school is about £15,000 a year per student. Do you know how much I get per student? £5,000. Now, with £5,000, my staff, with limited resources, have actually elicited a 6% increase in high grades. Can you imagine if you gave me 3 times the kind of funding per student, what we could do with that? The third point is, you said, what's the plan? What I've said to my staff 5 years ago was that we brought in very specific projects to support our struggling students, our highest ableist students. We've put together a support package, lots of pastoral support. And what I promised them was no more stupid initiatives from senior leaders every year to distract you with something sexy. What we've said is we are working with tweaking to transform what we are doing. And these are fine tuning here that we have got to do. So we're going to carry on doing the same as we've always done, work with integrity, work very closely with our schools, put aside the politics. It's all about what's in the best interest for young people. And next Thursday is GCSE results day. I'm confident that our staff in schools are going to do a great job because they've gone through a tough time. And then next week from the 29th, we will have 2/3 of the cohort coming to us. And I'm saying to them, look, come to us confident that you will get the best quality education that you can get. And after you will get it at state privates, but you will get a private school experience. That is exactly what I've said to our parents. And the other thing is, we will work you hard. When I have parents evenings, I say, we will work you hard. So that's the plan. Carry on doing what we have done, because clearly what we are doing is having a massive impact.
Nice. And I like what you're doing. You're managing what's in your realm of control and influence. Yeah. And I really like the point that you've made around the budgets. You're absolutely right. £5,000 per student head versus £15,000 per private head. That's, a third of you're basically a third of the budget you've got that you're working with, and you're still getting above national average results. That's an achievement in itself. And I'm not pointing out any errors or mistakes on your part, but when you put it like that, it's absolutely viable. Let me put my last question to David Seaton, if I may, Assistant Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the University of Bedfordshire. So David, thanks for staying with us and listening to this awesome conversation. One of the things that really drew my attention was that maths remained the most popular subject for this year's students, while economics actually replaced geography in the top 10 most popular subjects. And also English literature went up in popularity as well. And computing as well had the highest increase with 16% more entries this year. What's your take on that? So, we're seeing maths going up, economics going up, geography becoming more popular, and also computing. Is this a reaction to certain trends?
I think it is, and it's really interesting because if you look at the demand for higher education throughout clearing, they almost replicate like for like those trends in terms of A levels. And actually, certain subjects that traditionally are very, very popular within clearing, such as the likes of nursing, have actually fallen out the list for top 10 searches on UCAS. So I think it is a trend, but I think it's actually a trend that has been going on potentially longer than what we think, because obviously those students coming through now are now researching those same subjects, but at university level education.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, I'm very grateful to both of you gents for joining us and sharing your perspectives, and congratulations to both of you and good luck to Altaf, yourself and your wonderful sixth form and all your students for the next academic year. By the way, Altaf, I'm available, and so am I for you, David, as well, in giving inspirational on the house lectures to your students if they need that on the 7 habits of highly effective people. I'm actually one of the very few people around today that was trained by the late Stephen Covey himself a long time ago. So happy to come in and speak to your students about being proactive and thinking win-win, and also starting at the end in mind. So
I'll take you up on that. I think I will take you. No, seriously, I will take you up on that. Thank you.
And likewise, we will.
Please do. I'm a local person, and
we also have degrees in media, radio, etc. as well. So absolutely, yeah, we'll take you up.
And Abdul, if you want to do any teaching, just give me a call.
That's why I love helping out. Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And on that note, let me thank you both for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your Friday, gents. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, Indy. Thank you.
All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live. What a wonderful call this up. Two great men doing great work, and I'm sure there's women amongst them as well, but we spoke to men today, and they're doing some great work there. I mean, Luton sixth form, wow. Look at those numbers.
Yeah, indeed. But I think, to be honest, right, well, shout out to the parents as well, because parents over the years have been more proactive in making sure that their children achieve high results. So much so, I'd say that private tuition is going through a bit of a revolution in Luton. There are lots and lots of institutions who are offering private tuition, and there are people who are having tuition up to A-level. Wow. Up to the A-level level.
That's good.
Effectively. So
it's good but expensive, I guess, right?
It is expensive, but
parents are investing in their children.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And in some ways, I guess the college and the universities are benefit from that as well, because there is an understanding, right, that you know, from the parents at least anyway, that they need to push their children as much as they can.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, this is Friday Night Live, and you're tuning in to Inspire FM, but also a big shout out to those listening from Salam Radio in Peterborough, Link FM in Sheffield, Awaz Radio in Southampton, and also CVFM in Middlesbrough. Welcome to all of you listeners. You are listening to an awesome show right now, and we're about to play Guess the Voice. So grab your pens and write this number down, 01582 481 822. We're about to give out a meal for two at Benjamin's. For those of you listening on Salam, Link, Awaz, and CBFM, you're going to have to drive down to Luton to enjoy this prize, but it is a good prize at benjaminscafe.co.uk on Upper George Street. And you've got to guess these 3 voices. As soon as you know the voices, give us a call after the break on 01582 481 822. And if you get the voices correct, we will add your name into the hat and then choose a lucky winner for that awesome meal for 2. Here comes voice number 1.
And I never thought anything like this could happen.
Zaffar, what does that sound like?
I never thought it could happen.
Sounds like your favorite.
The only crime
sounds like somebody who could do with some more formaldehyde, I would say as well.
Here comes voice number 2.
I seem to have messed myself. I mean, I haven't really messed myself. I mean, I messed my sugar. But make sure you read chapter 4 in your textbooks on genetics, and it's going to be a pop quiz on Wednesday. There's a pop quiz.
Okay, slightly trickier one,
but
it's
very tricky, that one.
A very well-known actor back in the day.
Yeah.
So those of you who are probably 35 plus will definitely know this one. Here comes voice number 3.
Thank you, the Labour Party, for giving me the
We
extraordinary
heard that.
privilege of leading you these past 12 years.
Enough of that, I think, to be honest.
Let's listen to that one more time, because Zaffar Saab's sigh there was quite loud. Let's say it one more time.
Thank you, the Labour Party, for giving me the extraordinary...
Okay, well, that's enough of that. So voice number 1, one last time.
And I never thought anything like this.
That's voice number 1. Voice number 2.
I seem to have messed myself. I mean, I haven't really messed myself. I mean, I messed my sugar.
And voice number 3.
Thank you, the Labour Party, for giving me the extraordinary privilege of leading you these past 12 years. Thank you.
Okay, well, listeners, 01582 481 822. If you want to win a meal for two at benjaminscafe.co.uk, that's going to be given away in tonight's show. So give us a call to take part in Guess the Voice, and I'll be taking those calls after the break. Well, listeners, this is Friday Night Live. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about the 76th Independence Day, which was celebrated for Pakistan on the 14th of August, just a few days ago. But also, sadly, this is on the back of more than 100 people having been arrested in East Pakistan after thousands of Muslims burned down churches and vandalized homes. I'll be asking the question, is it right for a majority Muslim country to be burning down churches and people in that country to burn down churches? Is it? Friday Night Live. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salat al-Asr.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज असर का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 72 11110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya 'ala as-salah. Hayya 'ala as-salah. Hayya 'ala al-falah. Hayya 'ala al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعث مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Would you like to sponsor the azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to part 2 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar and Zaffar Iqbal Saab. And welcome to those of you listening across the nation on Salam Radio in Peterborough, Link FM in Sheffield, Awaz Radio in Southampton, and also CVFM in Middlesbrough. Welcome to all of you tonight. It is, of course, 6:30 p.m. on Friday, the 18th of August, and we are having an action-packed show. We've just talked about the A-level results, so if anyone wants to share their A-level results so far and how they did, do call us on 01582481822. Happy to hear the news as well. And also, those of you who did not get the results you were expecting, don't worry. Don't worry. The good Lord has a plan for you as well. There's a plan for everyone on this earth. So don't worry at all. Isn't it, Zaffar, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't hit your grades, it's not the end of the world.
Listen, what's due to you,
yeah,
right, will never miss you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what you got to remember.
Yeah, and everything happens in your life for a reason, and it's action and reaction. And remember, the reaction is really important. So how you respond to your situation, whether it's not getting the grades that you wanted, not getting into the university that you wanted, it's okay. Make sure you leverage your network. Don't make unilateral decisions, is my advice. So in other words, don't go out and make your decision yourself. Speak to your friends, speak to your family members, speak to any aunties and uncles or contacts that you have for their advice, get their feedback and input, and then synthesize all that information and make a decision that is right for you. So don't worry about it, okay? So those of you who did not hit your grades, that's really important to remember. But listeners, we're going to go on to our next topic right now, and we have some really exciting guests in the studio and also on the line. Of course, Pakistan did celebrate its 76th Independence Day. That's right. We did celebrate. Pakistan did celebrate its 76th Independence Day. Can you believe it, Zaffar? It's been 76 years since the independence of Pakistan.
Yeah, well, I missed most of them. So.
But it is quite amazing, and it is quite sad though when you look at the turmoil in the country and with what is going on. And when I mention turmoil, I'm not just talking about the politics there, because listeners, you may have heard the news just a couple of days ago, and this is really sad news, that a crowd actually vandalized 8 churches and several homes following accusations of blasphemy against Islam in Pakistan's most populated province of Punjab on Wednesday, according to government authorities and residents, stoking tensions between local Muslim and minority Christian communities. Now, the National Commission for Human Rights said the number of churches burned has risen to 8 in an update on Wednesday, calling the situation sad and shameful. So we're going to not only talk about the Pakistani independence, which is good news to some extent, and it's great that there is the nation of Pakistan that was created some 76 years ago. But I think this has been overshadowed by this very sad news and probably not infrequent occurrence of this type of blasphemy type situation where people frankly overreact when there are accusations without judicial process or a court of law actually verifying some of these rumors, which is really sad. But joining me, I'm delighted that joining me in the studio right now, Zaffar, is Professor Zaffar Khan. He's chair of Luton Council of Faiths and also a local activist. And also on the line, we've got Omar Saleh Uddin Khan, who is a presenter of A Fair Reflection, so a familiar voice on this station, and also a passionate Pakistani I've got here. So assalamu alaikum to both of you, Zaffar Khan Saab, and also to Omar. How are you? Omar on the line.
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. Well, jazakallah for having me.
Great to have you. Omar, I'll come to you in a moment, but let me go to Professor Zaffar Khan Saab first. I've got 2 Zaffar Saabs in the studio.
Very confusing for you.
Very confusing, but they're both very handsome, and they're actually wearing both blue shirts as well, and they both have white beards. MashaAllah. But Zaffar Khan Saab, let me ask you first of all, 76 years since the formation of the state of Pakistan, how did you celebrate a few days ago?
I wish the people of Pakistan wholehearted 76th anniversary. And as a Kashmiri, we always want to see Pakistan as a prosperous and strong state. And I think, objectively speaking, Pakistan's promise has not been realized. I mean, that is the bottom line.
It's really sad, isn't it? And let me go to Omar on the line as well. Omar Salahuddin Khan, who's a presenter of a fair reflection on Inspire FM. Omar, what goes through your mind when you look back at the 76 years of Pakistan as somebody who's very passionate about the formation of the country and when you visit the country?
Well, the show that we did was on this subject, and to be honest, I didn't celebrate. The sad truth is it's hard to celebrate right now with what's happening. I think what could have been is probably the summary of Pakistan for me. And it's not that it's over, the dream's not dead, and I think it's still alive. There's people that are still holding the flag up high, but overall the parties that control, not parties, but the people that are in power, they're not letting that dream, as Brother Zaffar said, be realized. And so it's not that it could have been, and hopefully there's still a future. But as we stand right now, we are in massive turmoil. We've declined. We're not going up. That's what I'm saying. Celebrating doesn't make sense right now because we're not going up. We're going backwards. So I'm not sure what we're celebrating.
But Omar, don't people have, shouldn't there be a way for them to celebrate as an outlet? I mean, of course, we have our Eid, which is part of the Islamic faith and the majority faith in Pakistan. Surely the Independence Day is a way to look back at the oppression from India all those years ago, and the fact that a Pakistani and a Muslim majority state was created so that people could practice their religion without fear of persecution and terror, and actually enjoy their faith in an environment and in a country that was constituted based on their faith.
Yes, I agree. And celebration makes sense in most occasions. And also, I think acknowledgement is important. So the history and what's happened, that still needs to be taught and that needs to be discussed. That's important. But it's like, even, for Eid, for instance, it's only a celebration for those that have been striving and working hard through Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah, who are fasting and struggling and striving. And then Eid comes like a celebration. It makes sense. You can't celebrate if you are not, as members of the, and I'm not talking about the entire public here, but I think there is a vast majority of people, having spent a lot of time there recently and speaking to people on all sorts of levels in Pakistan, a vast majority of the population is not so interested in progressing the country as they are in smaller things, and whether that's political issues, whether that's family and social issues. And so I think it's a good time to do some introspection and look at how we're going to move forward instead of just focusing on what's happened in the past and the fact we had freedom 76 years ago, which arguably we're still not free, arguably. So I'm saying acknowledge it, but celebration, I'm not so sure.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you for sharing that. And let me go to Professor Zaffar Khan Sahab. Professor Zaffar Khan Sahab, these 8 churches that were burned recently in Punjab by this mob, these nutcases that went around on rumors of blasphemy, this in a way kind of summarizes the state of Pakistan, and maybe even some would say the illiteracy amongst the people, that they are willing to be judge, jurors and executioners and arsonists on the back of just hearsay and unproven rumors. What went through your mind when you heard about the story of the churches being burned down by a crazy mob?
Well, you see, in a country like Pakistan, or the country that was created as a minority and created for minorities' aspirations to be realized. There is a premise here, right from the outset, that such a country will always strive to safeguard its minorities. And I think quite apart from what Islamic scriptures speak about non-Muslims within a Muslim state, one has to look at it in the sort of totality and history of Pakistan itself. That this was a country created by Muslims of the subcontinent to live according to their own sort of principles and
values
and faiths and so on. But because they feared that in a united India, that would not be possible. And by that notion, you can infer that the minorities in the new state should also enjoy, an environment that is free of those fears.
Is that a bit like Israel-Palestine? Like, could there be a parallel there that you could draw potentially? Because this is how Israel is treating the Palestinians.
Well, but
they were once oppressed.
Yeah, potentially, I hope that Pakistan will not go down to that extent. Pakistan, I mean, the positive sides of Pakistan are that the ordinary people are very simple and very kind, generous, and they are good human beings. All 240 million of them, and they are good to each other, irrespective of who their neighbors are. They are usually by and large good, and I think that is a positive to take out of this. But I think Pakistan's problems lie in the elite and how the elite actually keeps on controlling more and more of not only the resources but also means of governance and expression and representation. And I think by and large, most Pakistanis are not represented in the institutions of the state.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's really interesting you say that. And let me go to Zaffar Iqbal Sahib in the studio as well, my co-presenter on this program. Zaffar Sahib, Zaffar Khan Sahib just said something really interesting, which is basically a lot of power in the hands of the few that are not representative of the general population. I mean, not many people know, for example, that the late General Pervez Musharraf actually was an Ismaili, for example. Benazir Bhutto, Bilawal Bhutto, not many Pakistanis know that they are Ismaili Muslims, right? They belong to a fringe sect of Islam that does not represent the mainstream Sunni Muslim majority. People are shocked when they hear, oh, Benazir Bhutto, no, she's Sunni Muslim or whatever. Bilawal Bhutto, he's representative of the people. But actually, there's clear evidence, that, and these people have said themselves what they are, and they don't represent the majority of Pakistanis. Isn't that the problem with Pakistan, where there are elite people effectively running a country and have all this power, and they're abusing that power?
I think just picking up from what Zaffar Khan Sahib said,
I'm going to completely ignore my question. Okay, fair enough.
The problem is the problem you've got really is that Pakistan, the place where Pakistan is, it's always been a feudal society. It's always run by Vaderas and people who are peers and people who are of high status, so to speak, right? And they've lived their lives in exclusion from the ordinary people. Pakistan by itself.
That's like the UK, though. I mean, Rishi Sunak, he's married to a billionaire.
Not to the extent. I mean, not to the extent that people who are lower stratus of society are deliberately kept to that level, so that these people can feed on them. Right? Effectively, that is the case. The other issue you've got, right, is the vision that for which Pakistan was created has not been filtered through, has not been expressed through the institutions. Verbally, yes, everyone talks about, what does Pakistan mean, etc. But through the institutions, it hasn't. But I would argue that the political class have been very, successful in amassing, wealth for themselves, but largely they're ignored by the ordinary people. Like
the political class has failed abysmally to safeguard the rights and aspirations of the ordinary Pakistanis, let alone the minorities. And minorities have been let down. Minorities, in fact, the Christians, we're talking about Christians, and their churches have been burnt and their homes have been ransacked. The Christians were the one major prominent minority that supported the creation of Pakistan. And so that is and they do play a part in the ongoing sort of, if you like, story of Pakistan even today in all sorts of ways, not just in education, in arts, and all the other ways.
But Zaffar Khan Sahib, you make a really good point. But isn't the problem that if we spoke to any political leader right now about the situation with these churches being burned down, I am pretty sure they would condemn these horrible acts. They have, right?
I think there's story today. One of the newspapers said that there are Muslims out there who are protected and shielded.
Absolutely, quite rightly, and they should
shielded their neighbors, shielded the Christians as well.
I think we have to be
problem you've got is that the people who are not so educated, people who are attached to particular, I call them jamaats, if you like, right? But
yeah,
you know, you can.
It's these tribes. It's these tribal leaders, right?
And
taking the law into their own hands.
And basically, without applying the filter of thought in terms of what they're doing, they obey instructions of people who are using, abusing them at the end
Let me
of the
get
day.
Omar in on the line. Omar, go ahead.
You know, there is the level of ignorance involved, and I think we're all referring to that, whether it's tribalism, whether that's sectarianism, whether that's a particular religious following you have. And so, and people are kept dumb and blind so that they can be used. And this is being done by the landed gentry and the elitist of Pakistan. However, I think we need to be careful when we paint the entire country and its history as, you know, I know you asked the question for a reason about Israel and Palestine, but it's nothing like that. This incident is it's a rare incident. So you do have incidents of obviously blasphemy charges, and that does happen, but that's about a person. This thing of, you know, now apparently it's 20 churches that are today have been burnt down, and people's houses attacked. This is a very rare incident in Pakistan, and so generally speaking, people are quite respectful. I mean, my family is also in Hyderabad, and there's a large Christian community there. Large, they have their own land and everything, and you rarely ever hear of someone's been killed or there's been an attack. So I don't think that this is happening every day. What happens with the Pakistani media, they obviously, like most media outlets, they love the sensationalizing news, and so they, you know, really pump this up. So I think you just got to be careful. Yes, minorities are suffering right now.
I disagree. I mean, I beg to disagree. I respect your point of view, but I think, you know, Pakistani media, I've been following it for past 2-3 days in a more attentive way, has been quite muted about this incident. You know, admittedly, there have been reports which are, you know, which could not have, but on the whole, I mean,
there's a reason for that, though.
Quite muted.
But you can't hide from the fact, right, that these are atrocious acts basically committed against a
100%.
minority.
What I'm saying is,
you can't hide from the fact, right, that people can be riled up. Only last year, a Sri Lankan was killed basically in the very same place. So there's something very wrong in that region.
Well, it's an adverse reaction to quote unquote blasphemy allegations. But Omar, what are you going to say?
So I think there needs to be some control on how there's blasphemy charges, because this can be used as a blackmailing tool, and I think in the past it has. There has to be some control of that. But also, it is a major Muslim country with very high emotions, and obviously sometimes people can get very, very carried away, as we see now, which is completely wrong.
There's nothing that justifies this, right? But
I'm not justifying
what you're seeing is a failure of the state, right? What you're seeing is a failure of people's trust in the judicial system, right, to bring justice, right, to people who are creating provocation, right? So they are taking the law into their own hands. The reason they're taking the law into their hands is because they don't trust the system, and the system that's broken.
Question, but Omar, I'll come back in a second. But Zaffar Khan Saab, is the reason why your observation that the media has been relatively muted here, and maybe even leadership in Pakistan have been relatively muted here, is because there's elections around the corner?
Well, exactly, that's my point, and in fact we intend to write a letter to the Pakistan High Commission, and I suggest that all Muslims living in this country, and we live here as a minority, and we have our issues and challenges, and admittedly there are sometimes some serious challenges that we face as a minority. But nevertheless, we as a minority also have an obligation here to ensure that something like this does not happen again in Pakistan, because that, you know, it has reverberations. Now,
Well, it will happen again.
Yeah.
It will happen again. It will keep happening.
But coming back to your question, I think someone here is using the mob
emotions,
emotions, because the election is on the other side of, I don't know, 3 months, whatever time. But I mean, certainly there is going to be an election soon. And so perhaps some people are trying to exploit this situation. And, fine, there are very strong blasphemy laws in Pakistan. It's a question of how they are applied.
Correct.
Sometimes the judges close their eyes and they apply them, and the impact is really devastating, not only in the country, but outside. You see, Pakistan has a very bad press outside for reasons that are, avoidable. You know, and so there are great things that Pakistan has achieved and Pakistan can achieve and could have achieved.
I mean,
But,
Zaffar Khan Sahab, and we're all diaspora, right? We're all Pakistani diaspora. Our parents, or maybe we emigrated from Pakistan, and now we're all over the world. My question to you is, what should we be doing in reaction to this type of news? Should we be knocking on our Christian neighbors' doors, apologizing? Should we be educating them, saying this is not part of the Pakistani constitution? Because there will be Christians watching the news on CNN, on Sky News, and thinking, oh, well, look at these Pakistanis taking over our country, and now look what they're doing to our churches in their country. This is the kind of, this fuels more hatred.
It's nothing to, you see, it's not a question of you wanting to please an American or a Dutch or whatever. No, it's a question of looking after minorities in your own country, because you have a duty. You have a duty as a Muslim, but also as a citizen, and also as a government, and as a state, as institution. The police, Punjab police, one of the largest police forces in Pakistan, and one of the most well-resourced forces. Now, they could have avoided this. They could have avoided, many other acts of this nature in the past. Admittedly, not as big as this. But I think it's a question of actually ensuring that law and order prevails, and the minorities are not exploited for political reasons.
Absolutely.
Which is the case in my view in this matter.
Let me go to Omar Salahuddin Khan for his final words. But Omar, like if you were speaking to a person not from the Islamic faith, or certainly not familiar with Pakistan as you are, and you said that you visited recently, and they raised this issue with you, because often it is the negative things people stick to and not so much the positive things. But we've all been to Pakistan, hopefully. We've all seen it's such a beautiful country. It's got such a beautiful people, as we talked about, and the environment is so beautiful. And there's so much that the country has to offer, not just to its people, but to the rest of the world. However, when news like this hits the front pages, it really disrupts the reputation and all of our work that we're trying to do in our own local countries where we live. What would your response be to somebody not of the Islamic faith or of Pakistani heritage saying, listen, what are you guys doing to Christian churches? What's wrong with you people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the response will be similar to when we have a suicide attack or some terrorist attack that happens in the UK, America, or anywhere else. And it's obviously to explain to them it's nothing to do with the faith. Having said that, though, the reason why this is so shocking to everyone, because it is a very rare occurrence. And so I think we just got to be careful with how we portray it. And I think part of the reason why the media hasn't been covering as much as what Zaffar Bhai was saying was, with everything that's happening in the country right now, I think they've got a lot to cover. And so I know, which is wrong, this is the top priority. And obviously it's a huge crime that's been committed. It should be covered. But I don't think it's because they're trying to, on purpose, undermine minorities, or that the police could have intervened, but they chose not to intervene because minorities. I think that would be an unfair statement and an unfair reading of the situation. But we do have to present Pakistan as, and historically, for the last 76 years, it has mostly been very peaceful with minorities. There are incidents of blasphemy being used as a blackmail tool, and we have to crack down on that and figure a better way out.
All right. Well, Omar Salahuddin Khan and also Professor Zaffar Khan, thank you so much for appearing on this program and sharing your perspectives on the Pakistani situation. Thank you so much. Listeners, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zaffar Iqbal Saab. You are listening to Friday Night Live, as I mentioned, and also we're going to be beaming out to the good people of Salam Radio in Peterborough, Link FM in Sheffield, Awaz Radio in Southampton, and CVFM in Middlesbrough. Of course, across also to Luton and surrounding areas as well tonight. We've got another hour of tonight's show with some other more action-packed topics. We're going to be asking, are the Taliban good for Afghanistan and the world? And this is all on the back of the latest situation where still the Taliban have not provided fair education to women and girls. They're still sitting at home, unable to continue their education. Is this fair? Is this the right thing to do? Are the Taliban good for Afghanistan and the world? We'll be asking that question in roughly 10 minutes' time. But also, we'll be talking in about half an hour's time about Umrah 2023, of course. For those of you who've got a chance to do the pilgrimage so far post-pandemic, you are very lucky. Some of you are still thinking about going for Umrah this year or maybe next year. What's it looking like? And is it getting easier to fly to the Holy Land? We'll be speaking to experts in the tour sector and also expert Rashid Mogradia from the Council of British Hajis to learn more about that. But this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zaffar Iqbal Saab. You can also call us on 01582 481 822 to take part in our program and also play Guess the Voice. That's right, we're going to be playing Guess the Voice, where you can win a meal for two at our sponsor Benjamin's Cafe and grab a lovely, delicious dessert from them today. And don't forget, the voices are here. Here's voice number one.
And I never thought anything like this.
Voice number two.
I seem to have messed myself. I mean, I haven't really messed myself. I mean, I messed my shirt.
And voice number three.
The Labour Party, for giving me the extraordinary...
If you know who those are, 01582 481 822. We'll be right back after these messages.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Hi, this is Muhammad Tayyib Ali from It's My Joke. Keep listening to Inspire FM on 105.1 FM.
Why do Tops Pizza deliver the top pizzas in Luton and Dunstable?
For a start, all the toppings are 100% halal and Tops use fresh dough every day. Then there's the cheese, the highest quality available. And when it comes to food preparation, cleanliness is taken as part of our faith. So that just leaves the taste, choice and great offers, including buy one, get one free on all medium, large and extra large pizzas. Tops Pizzas, Wellington Street, LU1 5AA. Order online, topspizza.com or via Just Eat. Download our app or call 01582 72 5000.
Lee Grade Heating Supplies. With over 20 years of experience, we're the largest independent plumbers merchant in the area, specialising in all types of plumbing and heating, as well as combination boilers and mega-flow cylinders. Whether you need a new bathroom or a complete new heating system, LHS is the place. Come along to our brand new bathroom showroom at Unit 1, 3 Chorlend Lane, Luton, to see the latest range of quality bathrooms. Or log on to leegrave.net. We're an Interpart-approved stockist for all genuine spares. Our new store in Bedford is now also fully opened. Lee Grave Heating Supplies. Call Luton 84 86 88.
Picture, if you will, a small local business navigating their way through these tough economic times. They wait for the phone to ring, but it never happens. They thought they could save money by not advertising, and now they've been forgotten. They're trapped in the has-been zone.
Don't let your business get lost in the has-been zone. Remind your customers that you're still around to deliver your products and services with a low-cost, effective and ear-catching radio campaign here on Inspire FM. For details, visit inspirefm.org, then contact us.
How many times have you needed urgent medical supplies but don't know where to go? At Harris Pharmacy, we take pride in delivering a high-level healthcare to our community. This is why we have services such as private one-to-one consultation, free prescription ordering from GP and delivery to your home, mobility aids such as providing wheelchairs and many other items for everyday use. Call us today on free phone 0800 458 2850 to discuss your medical needs. We are open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Harris Pharmacy, 165 A/B, Dunstable Road, Luton.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम किरण है। कोट कश्मीर ऑर्फन्स रिलीफ ट्रस्ट मेरा एक खूबसूरत घर है जहां मेरे साथ सैकड़ों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की तालीम व तरबियत और पुरसुकून माहौल में परवरिश हो रही है और ये सब कुछ आपके तावन से मुमकिन है। अल्लाह से दुआ है कि अल्लाह करीम आपको सदा सलामत रखे और उम्मीद है कि आप इसी तरह अपना प्यार, मोहब्बत और तावन जारी रखेंगे। कोट UK ऑफिस 0300123774 court.org.uk।
आजकल एक नया फ्रॉड चल रहा है। आपको मुख्तलिफ लोग मुख्तलिफ कंपनियों और मुख्तलिफ बैंकों के नाम से टेलीफोन करते हैं और आपको लॉटरी जीतने की खुशखबरी देते हैं और फिर जौनसा देकर आपसे रकम वसूल करके भाग जाते हैं। ऐसी तमाम फोन कॉल से होशियार रहें। इंस्पायर एफएम कम्युनिटी अवेयरनेस मैसेज।
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to part 3 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar and Zaffar Iqbal Sab. Of course, we are Friday Night Live beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas on Inspire FM 105.1, but also beaming out to the good people of Peterborough through Salam Radio, the good people of Sheffield through Link FM, Southampton through Awaz Radio, and also Middlesbrough through CV FM. So welcome to all of you around the UK. We have, of course, been talking about the A-level results. We've been talking about the 76th Independence Day of Pakistan, which happened a few days ago. And now, many of you may have been listening to that Independence Day anthem. This is the Pakistani national anthem. Of course, it has been 76 years since the founding of Pakistan, but we have been talking about the grim picture of the current political and economic turmoil that is gripping the country in front of the elections, which are going to happen in roughly 90 or so days' time, depending on when the government decides to draw out those boundary lines and probably try to stretch out the election as far as they can so that they can continue to reduce support for Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party. Well, we're going to be watching that closely on Inspire FM and also on Friday Night Live. But right now, we're talking about their next door neighbors in Pakistan, Afghanistan, actually. So many of you will be aware of the next door neighbors in Afghanistan. And it has been actually over 1 year since the Taliban took ascent to power in Afghanistan. And some are suggesting that the plight of Afghans is worsening. Now, the economic situation is dire. Malnutrition rates are increasing and women's rights are being curtailed, and there's continuing migration and internal displacement, and the healthcare system is claimed is also crumbling, and already high maternal mortality rates are thought to have increased fourfold. Now, that is the situation in Afghanistan next door, over 1 year on since the Taliban took back power in what was a very chaotic recovery of power, when you saw those pictures on the news when all those American, Zaffar Sahab, you remember this?
I do indeed.
Remember when all the aircrafts were landing, there were people even grabbing onto airplanes as they were taking off and falling off. It was chaotic scenes.
It was.
And the majority of the Western world was mourning that how could they possibly let the Taliban return after they were ousted from the second Gulf War that took place post 9/11, and they're back in power as of early last year. But some would argue, those who are in favor of the Taliban would argue that really they are in a very difficult situation. I mean, you can't allow a government to come back in power unless it has funds. And apparently, when the Taliban did come back in power, most countries around the world shunned them, saying we're not going to work with this government, even though this is the government that was chosen by the people for the people, using traditional democratic rules. And also a lot of Taliban assets and government assets were frozen across the world. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of money that has been frozen and still not been released so that the Taliban could actually use this money on schools, on hospitals, etc. And on the same breath, those critics of the Taliban are saying that these guys aren't doing a very good job. So it's a complicated picture. But if you look at it in the other direction as well, the Taliban promised certain things. For example, one of the things that the opponents of the Taliban use quite commonly is that they say that the Taliban is against women's education and women's rights are being oppressed. And I hate to say it, I think they could be right, because still over 1 year on, we are not seeing the independent reports stating that women are allowed to go back to school, young girls can still go back to high school, etc. They haven't made any accommodation for that. And it's a really sad state of affairs. What's your take on this before I go to our guests?
To be honest, right, the Taliban defeated the Americans. The Americans and the Europeans and NATO allies are enemies of the Taliban. So why should there be kind words, right, from the Americans and the Europeans toward the Taliban? The Taliban, fought them for over 20 years or so.
So they are an enemy. But let me just sorry to interrupt you. I want to get our guest on the line.
From an education point of view,
yeah.
This is in Urdu they call this a bianiya. This is kind of like how the things are projected, right? So yes, we were defeated, but these guys are bad, right? Because they don't allow women to.
But so they are bad. If they're not letting women to study, they are bad.
It is. Well, I'm not defending. I'm not defending that, to be honest, right? It's a point of view that's being picked up and talked about on a regular basis. I'm sure it's something that they may be or they may not be, sort of dealing with.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is the first priority of any new nation is security. If they've achieved security for the state, and then other things follow on from that.
Economic stability, etc.
That's right.
I hear you. That's a really good point. But let me bring on somebody that can only stay with us for the next few minutes, and that is Rifatullah Orakzai, who's a freelance journalist based in Peshawar and has been a journalist for 25 years and has worked with the BBC for 13 years. And his area of study is Pakistan and the Afghanistan militancy, terrorism, and banned militant organizations. Good evening to you, Rifatullah. Thanks for joining us at late notice. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question for you, if I may, which is a lot of critics of the Taliban are saying 1 year plus on, they haven't achieved what they set out to do, and they haven't fulfilled their promises of allowing women, for example, to get an education and for allowing women to work in the way that they were before the Taliban actually took power and took over the government. What is your analysis of what's going on in Afghanistan right now?
Well, 2 years before, when they took control of Afghanistan, so at that time they, they did an agreement with the Americans in Doha, Qatar, and in the back meetings and after that agreement, they assured the world that their land will not be used by against any country, and they will make some relaxation in other fields as well. At that time, they were saying, the Taliban, Imarat-e-Islami, that we are not those Taliban who back in 90s when they got a rule. So we are no changed, and during these 20 years, the world progress. So we are also changed in this respect. But with the passage of time, it come to know that they are did not change. Rather, these were just the solo just claims. They were just claiming at that time because at the ground now they.
Okay, I think we've briefly lost our guest who is tuning in from Peshawar right now with the connection. But let me get Zaffar Khan Sahib for your reaction, Zaffar Khan Sahib. What's your take? What I heard there from our guest Rifatullah Orakzai, who's a freelance journalist based in Peshawar, that the Taliban really just made agreements so that they could get into power and said lots of things that they haven't delivered, probably like any other political group or politicians would, and they haven't really delivered on this agreement that they would allow women and children and young women to get an education. I mean, what's your analysis here, Zaffar Khan Sahib?
Apart from apart from what Brother Zaffar has said about the Western attitudes, and I agree with him. There are issues, you see, serious issues within how the Taliban have actually behaved since they came back into power. I think women and women's participation in the state, particularly in the education area and other sort of areas, is quite a visibly an area where Taliban have made a deliberate policy to exclude women, and that I think is something that is quite factual. The other is that you would expect the kind of attitude from the West, having lost many of their men and material, and for 20 years the Americans got another bloody nose. Since Vietnam, the sort of biggest and even longest war they fought in Afghanistan. So there was a clear defeat. And when President Trump came in, I mean, his first priority was to get the hell out of there, and he sort of bombed them.
Yeah.
He bombed them a couple of times with the huge, the most humongous sort of non-nuclear bomb. But that was a kind of a parting sort of goodbye, and they left. No, I think Taliban have a real problems and real issues on their hands. First, they have to actually be quite clear what they feel about Pakistan. You see, Pakistan and Afghanistan are a kind of joined at the hip, and the Taliban depend on Pakistan for so many reasons. And Pakistan, as a state, invested too much in
Pakistan needs a stable Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right.
And now one of the major issues for Pakistani state is the sort of attitude of Afghanistan and the lack of sort of control that Afghanistan has chosen not to exert on those elements. Mullah Hibatullah last week said, whoever goes out and bombs somebody on another foreign soil, we will sort of excommunicate them. Nobody should offer their janaza prayers, and they will not be called shaheed, and so on. So that's a powerful fatwa, fine, but this is not a kind of policy that a policy approach that you take. Afghanistan has a lot of promise. Afghanistan, I think, is causing up to China, and China wants to actually come in a big way in Afghanistan.
China wants to come in everywhere, don't they?
I mean, Well, in Afghanistan as well, and so they are already in Pakistan. Afghanistan has access to Pakistan, and Gwadar is always open for Afghanistan, and also Afghanistan is gateway to Central Asia. And that is also, I think, not only for Pakistan but also a wider field. It is good for India and Bangladesh and so on and so forth, all the way to Burma and so on. So there are potential, sort of spin-offs for Afghanistan, and the Taliban have to be actually careful with their social policies. I mean, the social engineering, they have to be, mindful of their environment as well, and they can't always hold 51% of the population or half of the population in a manner that they are doing.
It's not compatible. And
I think I'm just going to come in with that. So I think social cohesion, right, is very important, right, and that includes social cohesion of the other half, the 51%, like Hans Saber said, and how you deal with them and how you treat them. You have a situation where Afghanistan is a very conservative society and always has been. Many years it has been a conservative society. But having said that, the parts of it have never been that conservative. So you got a situation where you got one half, right, which wants to project this conservativeness and sees the comments that you and I make, the comments that the Western government makes, etc., against women, sees it in a broader context, in the sense that these people are actually not attacking, they're not for the rights of women, they're attacking our culture, the very culture, right, of the country. So they're getting very defensive, right, and they are reacting in that sense. But if the Taliban, or if a stable government is to be established, in Afghanistan, the various types of people, the various communities that live in Afghanistan, they have to sort of buy into their vision. Right?
But this is classic,
and this is so this gender issue, the women's issue, is not new to.
But I don't think
Afghanistan.
Personally,
it's not new to Afghanistan. It's basically an arrow that's been fired at every Muslim nation.
If you think about, I fully agree with that, and they would say the same thing about Saudi Arabia and
absolutely Egypt.
Women
at one point it was Egypt.
Women
basically.
not being able to drive, blah blah blah, and still, even though Saudi Arabia has allowed that to happen finally, and it's the right thing to do. Welcome to the modern world, Saudi Arabia. At the same time, there's more things now that they want from Saudi Arabia, like the acceptance of transgender rights and homosexual rights and all these things, effectively pushing their way of life onto another people.
This is what I meant, right? It's actually an attack on culture and values, basically.
I agree. And look, I am no Taliban fan, but one thing I can observe, looking outside in, is that the Taliban have been dealt a really difficult hand. On one hand, they're being told to stabilize the country on the back of the mess that the previous government made. Let's be frank here. The previous government, opium trade, the opioid trade, heroin.
That's one thing they've managed to sort out.
They've kind of sorted it out to an extent. It still is happening, but a hell of a lot less than it was before. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So now that's something that people don't talk about. But also the economic situation of Afghanistan. People need to understand that they're under sanctions, right? They're under sanctions left, right, and center. So on one hand, we are criticizing the Taliban and the government of Afghanistan for not doing X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, behind the scenes, they're being crippled. They're not allowed to access their money, their funds for the people, because ultimately the people that are suffering are the ordinary Afghani people that chose the Taliban to be in power.
That's right.
So how can you?
Well, that's not strictly true, right? Because I don't think the people chose the Taliban. The Taliban's defeated the Americans and the previous government. They took over. Afghanistan is made up, like I said, made up of many different peoples, right? And not all of them sympathize with the ideology of the Taliban. So they took over. So they're not an elected government. They're a government, right, who's actually sort of conquered the land effectively, right? And they're trying to impose their rules. So,
but what happened to the Americans and the British that were meant to be fighting for, if you like, the local people and democracy? They just left. They just shut up shop and left because it was no longer in their interest to stay.
But that was never the objectives, or the objective, the stated objective
was the war on terror.
Is the war on terror. That was the stated objective. Some would argue, right, and it's probably written in many places as well, that Afghanistan is sitting on top of the world's biggest reserves of lithium. Now, and you can imagine, right, you know, cars.
If you drive a Tesla.
If you Tesla.
We will drive a Tesla.
So that was the next oil, effectively.
Yeah.
Right. And whoever has control of the oil, right, has, you know, in the past has had the whip hand, effectively. So you know, you talk about Chinese moving in. The Chinese aren't moving in because they love the Afghans or the Taliban. They see that as well. And the Soviets came in. Actually, it's the Soviets who actually discovered the lithium deposits, and they moved in first, effectively, right, in the 70s, and they were defeated. And then the Americans thought, well, they'll have a shot at controlling it. But the bottom line is that was another objective, and an objective that's failed.
But, I think this is why it's important to actually underline the sort of a growing relationship between Afghanistan, or the Taliban-led Afghanistan, and the Chinese.
Yeah.
Both have a similar sort of attitude to governance. And I think there is that convergence. And the other is the necessity for the Taliban to ensure that they have a steady sort of income in order to do whatever they want to do, irrespective of whether they are, you know, sort of leaving one section of society and the other section of society, and so on and so forth. But I think they could do it by actually being more inclusive. And still be Afghans. We all know that there is hostility in America, American hostility towards to Taliban, rather, British hostility, European hostility, for all sorts of reasons. And you could say that 20 years of war and still no result other than sort of creating chaos in Afghanistan and leaving chaos and leaving billions and billions of worth of weaponry that would be used against countries like Pakistan or maybe some other countries.
I wonder if Afghanistan had the same wealth as Saudi Arabia, the same infrastructure as Saudi Arabia, would the West have the same approach and attitude towards the Taliban? Maybe not. I mean, these lithium deposits.
So what's the attitude towards Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is not exactly loved, is it?
Well, Mohammed bin Salman is coming to the UK.
Yes, but the argument is the
Taliban leader is not coming to the UK.
No, but the argument is yes, you are right. The argument is that he's got billions and trillions. He's worth billions and trillions. Yeah. So we can't ignore him and just because he allegedly
Jamal
was involved.
Khashoggi situation. Everyone feels all the governments have admitted that this guy is guilty or his government is guilty, but nonetheless they are courting him, they're whining with him, they're dining with him. Rishi Sunak is welcoming him soon, has been announced yesterday. President Joe Biden famously fist bumped MBS. So clearly there is a bias here. There's a double policy here.
After ignoring him for a couple of years.
A couple of years, but still, I mean, there was a silence for sure. There was a fasting.
The dollars speak,
The dollars speak, the oil speaks, and also the fact that Saudi Arabia is developing almost $1 trillion tourism business by building, NEOM and the Line and all these other things that they're doing on their coast is interesting and is attracting the world, and the world needs their money, frankly speaking. The UK is a mess. Our economy is a mess, and the interest rates are probably going to go up another quarter of a percent.
A few more football clubs might be up for sale too.
Exactly, a few more football clubs. So if it wasn't for the Arab and Gulf states, we would be in a lot more of a mess than we are today. If it wasn't for Qatar, for example...
If their money wasn't here, maybe I'll be able to afford to buy another house.
It was not just their money. It's Russian money. It's Chinese money. It's Arab and Gulf money for sure. I mean, what a mess that they've created.
What's new?
What's new, exactly?
London has always had foreign money.
Yeah, we've always had foreign money. Yeah. But the thing is, and that's why people like us, we're struggling to even people like you guys are okay. You guys enjoyed the heyday, but people who are coming into their 20s and 30s now, they've got a chance in hell of getting a house, especially with the interest rates where they are today. You're not going to get an Islamic mortgage in a hurry because they're a rip-off as well, the Islamic mortgages, under a disguise of being Sharia compliant. So everyone's out there to make a buck, and the people that are losing out are the ordinary people.
Right.
And the rest of them are actually winning. So you're right, Zaffar Khan Saab. What is new? Not much is changing, but we need to be aware of this and we need to be proactive
I think
in managing this.
We're deviating a little bit right from the subject at hand.
Hey, I'll be the judge of that.
The Taliban and
Thank
Afghanistan, the challenge was, are they good? To be honest, right?
Are they good for the world?
They're not good for the world, right?
Even with the opium and the fact that they're reducing all that.
But the thing is, they've brought stability to that region, right? Lots of people suffered massively, right? Not just
they're not good for women at the moment,
not just in Afghanistan, but also in Pakistan as well. So they've brought a modicum of stability, and I hope that moves them on to the next level, right? Which is once you've established security and economic stability, etc., then human rights and all of those things follow. The Maslow's laws of whatever it's called.
Yeah, I mean, the government, there's layers that have to be created. You can't build a house without laying the foundations, right? Without laying the different layers that the builders put in, right?
And I think Mullah Hibatullah's edict, to sort of be fair with him, is quite positive because it will have an impact, and it will have a long-term impact. And I think if they stick with that, thinking, the Taliban could actually ensure that there are no attacks across the border into Pakistan, as there were, when Jamiat Ulama Pakistan lost people in its rally, I think 50-odd people recently.
Okay, we're going to watch this space. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for that insightful discussion on whether the Taliban is good for Afghanistan and the rest of the world. It sounds like the verdict is still out. There are some good things coming out of that particular government, but it's definitely some areas for improvement and development. But my question still remains is you can't expect perfection from a government that's inherited a mess and also that basically have their legs and their arms tied behind their back whilst trying to govern and don't have the funds to actually make a difference. It's really difficult and it's a tough one, but I do hope they can sort out the educational rights for girls and women and fix that at least so that those critics out there can no longer use that as an argument against them. Anyway, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zaffar Iqbal Saab. We are going to be talking about Umrah next. Umrah in 2023 and beyond after the COVID pandemic. What's it looking like? And is it getting easier to fly to Saudi Arabia? That's coming up in around 10 minutes time. But we are also playing Guess the Voice on 01582 481 822. If you can guess these voices, and give me the 3 correct answers. You could be in a chance for winning a meal for 2 at Benjamin's. That's benjaminscafe.co.uk. Here comes voice number 1.
And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Okay, that was voice number 1. Who is that? 01582 481 822. Here comes voice number 2.
I seem to have messed myself. I mean, I haven't really messed myself. I mean, I messed my shirt up.
Zaffar Saab, that sounds like a Beverly Hills Cop. Sounds like...
Viciously like it.
Sounds like a Beverly Hills Cop, indeed. Okay, here comes voice number 3.
Thank you, the Labour Party, for giving me the extraordinary privilege of leading you these past 12 years. Thank you.
All right, who is that? Sounds like an ex-prime minister and maybe instigator of the war on terror from the UK, at least. Weapons of mass destruction in 45 minutes is what he said.
Well, to be honest, I endured his voice for about 10 years or so. 15 years, I can't remember how long it was.
01582 481 822. You can win a meal for 2 at Benjamin's. So give us a call if you know those 3 voices, and we'll be happy to put your name in the hat if you can get those 3 voices correct in one go. Well, listeners, this is Friday Night Live. We're going to talk about Umrah after the break. So far, we've talked about A-level results. We've also thought about the Pakistan Independence Day and some of the challenges happening in Pakistan with those church burnings. Very terrible. And also talking about the Taliban. Next up, it's Umrah. Stay tuned. Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar Zaffar Iqbal. I'll be right back.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sheikh Hafs Al-Ghazi.
My name is Ali Imdad.
My name is Hamza Fletcher.
This is Fatih Safaragich.
My name is Ridwana Walislaha.
This is Naeem Raza.
My name is Dawood Masood.
This is Naveed Aziz.
This is your brother Raheem Jung.
I'm Amir Khan.
This is Lauren Booth.
This is Nabil Abdurrashid.
This is Brother Bona Mohammed.
My name is Nazil Azami. This is Baba Ali. This is Omar Regan.
My name is Julie Steaky. I hope you're enjoying yourself and keep tuned in to Inspire on 105.1 FM.
Did you see that guy on TV?
What, that no comment guy?
Yeah, he was sick. What was his name?
I think it was Atiq Malik.
Yeah, Atiq Malik of Liberty Law Solicitors. Atiq Malik heads up the criminal law team at Liberty Law Solicitors, specialising in everything from serious crime down to road traffic offences.
To find out more or for a free telephone consultation, call 01582 459955.
Liberty Law, there when you need us most.
And the foremost in faith will be foremost in the hereafter. Those are the ones brought near to God in the gardens of pleasure. They will enter in one rank with bright faces. Quran, Surah 56, Ayah 10 to 12.
Ideal Properties 20 साल से आपकी खिदमत में पेश आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की सारी जिम्मेदारी अब हमारी हम अच्छी तरह से जांच पड़ताल करके किराएदार डालते हैं और आपको किराया बर वक्त गारंटी के साथ दिलवाते हैं। अगर आप प्रॉपर्टी किराए पर लेने या फरोख्त करने का सोच रहे हैं तो आज ही हमारे तजुर्बाकार माहिरीन से राब्ता कीजिए 01582721110 या फिर 01582696050। आइडियल प्रॉपर्टीज, आपकी मदद हमारा एन फरीजा।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम वैलुल लिकुल्लि हुमज़तिन लुमज़ह الذي جمع مالا وعدده يحسب أن ماله أخلده كلا لينبذن في الحطمة وما أدراك ما الحطمة نار الله الموقدة التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة في عمد ممددة.
Are you a Muslim struggling to get by during these difficult times? You are not alone. Thanks to Zakat given through National Zakat Foundation, we can provide grants to help with money and support. to cover the cost for urgent essentials like food, medicine, and groceries. Please go to nzf.org.uk and click on apply to get the help you need. National Zakat Foundation, we're in this together.
We always want to know how to look after our health or the health and well-being of our loved ones. We always like to know what are the best exercise to adopt, or we want to know how to access certain health services. We address these and many similar health-related queries and advice in the Health and Fitness Show with me, Fahad Mateen, on every Thursday at 6 p.m.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the fourth and final part of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 18th of August. My name is Abdul Akbar. You're joining me live from Inspire FM studios here in Luton. And you're also joining Zaffar Iqbal. Zaffar. Tico.
Alhamdulillah.
You're not sleeping, are you? Not yet.
No, not yet. No, I'm playing with my phone. So
playing with your phone. Okay, well, listeners, we have been talking about a number of different topics today, and I'm delighted to be talking about Umrah in a moment. And of course, don't forget, if you are tuned in to Friday Night Live tonight, wherever you are, we are lucky to be joined by Salam Radio listeners in Peterborough, Link FM listeners in Sheffield, Awaz Radio in Southampton, and also CVFM in Middlesbrough. So welcome to our listeners from our partner stations across the nation. And we have been talking about lots of different topics. So if you were inspired or affected by any of the topics and you want to take part, 01582 481822 is the number to dial. We are playing Guess the Voice on the same number, 01582 481822. You can win, guys, you can win a dessert meal for two at Benjamin's Cafe at Upper George Street. They are an awesome place. If you can guess these three voices, I'm going to give away a dessert meal for two at Benjamin's Cafe in Luton. If you can give me the correct answers, I'm going to take the calls on a first come, first serve basis. Okay, so here comes voice number one.
And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Okay, that was voice number one. Voice number two.
I seem to have messed myself. I mean, I haven't really messed myself. I mean, I messed my sugar. But make sure you read chapter 4 in your textbooks on genetics, and it's going to be a pop quiz on Wednesday. There's a pop quiz.
This guy's a famous comedian, right?
Yeah, famous
the
comedian.
Labour Party for giving me
This
the
guy's a comedian too, some would argue.
privilege of leading you these past 12
Maybe a
years.
misleader, I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that was the three voices, and we've got a number of different calls. I'm going to take the first set of three correct answers straight away. If our callers get the correct answer straight away, they're going to win an awesome dessert meal for two at tonight's sponsor, Benjamin's Cafe. That's benjaminscafe.co.uk. If anyone wants to check them out, they're in Upper George Street here in Luton. Let's take our caller on the line. We've got Mohammed on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed. Mohammed, are you there? Assalamu alaikum. Mohammed. Okay, we're going to try. Yes, hi, Mohammed. How are you doing?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Where are you calling from today? Whereabouts in Luton are you?
I'm up like Farley Hill area.
Farley Hill. Oh, I love Farley Hill. It's got a great view of the rest of Luton. Thanks for calling, Mohammed. So you ready to play Guess the Voice?
Yes.
Okay, well, if you give me the three correct voices, I'm actually going to give you the prize. How does that sound? Sound exciting?
Geez, that sounds exciting.
All right, awesome. Here comes voice number one.
And I never thought anything like this.
All right, who is that?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Hey.
Okay, and here comes voice number two.
I seem to have messed myself. I mean, I haven't really messed myself. I mean, I messed my sugar.
Who is that?
I think that's one of my favorite actors, Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, one of your favorite actors. Okay, you sound a bit young to know Eddie Murphy, but okay, I'll take your word for it. Here comes voice number three.
Thank you, the Labour Party, for giving me the extraordinary privilege.
Okay, who is that?
Tony Blair.
Tony Blair. Okay, well, Mohammed, I've got to say, if you can guess this last bit of tune that I'm about to play, you could be in for a special prize. What is this? Does that sound familiar to you?
Is that God Save the Queen?
Right lines.
Do you know what? I'm still going to give you the prize. And by the way, that wasn't part of Guess the Voice. That's just me playing with you. But that was the Pakistan national anthem. Which, don't worry, you still got the prize. So congratulations, Mohammed. You win the prize for Benjamin's a dessert meal for two. How do you feel?
Feel very good. Alhamdulillah.
Oh, listen, it's 7:35. Isn't it your bedtime right now?
No.
MashaAllah. Well, you know what? I think what's great is you have won. And how old are you, by the way?
I'm 13.
13. Have you called in before?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You're the same Muhammad that called in last week, the week before. Congratulations. Well, you have won a prize this week, so well done. And are you enjoying listening to the show?
Yeah.
All right, man. Good answer. I'll leave you to it. Stay on the line and we'll tell you how you can claim the prize from Benjamin's. Well done. Congratulations, listeners. This is Friday Night Live, and Mohammed, 13-year-old, mashallah, hopefully under his parental supervision, has called in the program and has won this week's Guest the Voice. Don't forget, you can also take part every week. We're going to have 3 new voices and another sponsor, most likely Tops Pizza next week. So if you fancy a pizza, let us know on 01582 481822 and take part in Guest the Voice. Let me go straight to my next topic on the line, because this is an important one, especially for those of you who follow the Islamic faith, because Umrah is something that we should all aspire to do regularly and at least once in our lifetime. Zaffar Saab, I'm going to put you on the spot here. When was the last time you got a chance to go to the Holy Land and visit Masjid al-Haram?
2014.
2014. So it's been a while for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
MashaAllah. So, but still 2014, around 9 years ago-ish. I actually was lucky when I used to live in Dubai. I actually went last November, and it's changed quite a lot post-pandemic. There's been lots of different rules. I think back then, the mask ruling was actually getting a lot softer, and they weren't too sensitive about wearing masks. But the rules are changing, and Saudi Arabia is actually making it easier for those with some nationalities to actually just go there and get visa on arrival or get an e-visa in advance. But it's kind of confusing. So I wanted to cover this topic just to clarify exactly what you can do and how easy is it to go on Umrah these days. And I'm delighted to be joined by my first guest on the line, and that is Yassine Chowdhury, who actually is a travel agent and Hajj tour operator from One Call Travels. Assalamu alaikum, Yassine. How are you tonight?
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing? You all right?
Alhamdulillah. Good to have you on the program tonight. And don't forget, Yassine, we're beaming out to lots of different parts of the UK tonight. We're beaming out to the good people of Peterborough, Sheffield, Southampton, and Middlesbrough through Salam, Link FM, Awaz Radio, and CVFM. So welcome to all our listeners. So Yassine, tell us, what's the latest and greatest? Maybe we can start with the visa situation. So if I want to go, let's just say I want to pack up my bags and I want to go Umrah on Monday next week. Can I just literally take my British passport without booking or going to the Saudi embassy like I had to in the past? Can I just go take my British passport and get a visa on arrival? How does that work these days?
Yes. Just to make it very simple, yes, you can. All you need is your passport, which must be valid 6 months. And then you just travel to Jeddah or Riyadh or to Medina, and you will get your visa upon arrival. The visa you will get, which will be the first type of visa, is a tourist visa, which will give you a multiple entry. It will cost you approximately £100, 3 months maximum stay, and then you can enter the kingdom as much as you want within that 1 year validity, but maximum 3 months stay. That's the first type of visa. If I continue, there's a second type, just came now.
Just before you come to the second one, that first visa that you mentioned, is it possible for me to use that visa during the Ramadan and Hajj season?
Okay. Before I answer, just want to clarify that this visa is included with the health insurance. Why is it important? You will come to know soon, as I will describe other visas. Yes, you can use it for Ramadan. Yes, you can use it for anywhere else in the kingdom to go to any cities, but you cannot use it for Hajj because Hajj has its own separate visa which allows you to enter the kingdom.
Got it. All right, just stay on the line.
And that is not upon arrival. Sorry, that is not upon arrival. It is upon those individuals who have British passports in the European countries. They have to choose a package from Nusuk, and they will give you the visa which you will use to enter the kingdom with a package, not upon arrival.
I got it. Let me just go to somebody else on the line as well. Yassine Chowdhury, stay there because I'm going to come back to you for more information. Appreciate that information so far. But also on the line right now is my good friend and also expert on representing the affairs of British Hajjaj. He's done lots of work behind the scenes for British Hajjaj over the last decade, and he actually represents the Hajj and Umrah Secretariat as well. And it's Rashid Magradi alive on the line as well, no stranger to this program. Assalamu alaikum, Rashid Saab.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you tonight?
Alhamdulillah, thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on. So Rashid, we just spoke to Yassine Chowdhury. We're going to come back to him in a moment from One Call Travels, who's a Hajj tour operator. No stranger to you, I'm sure. But Rashid, let me ask you the following question. And this is something that's maybe a bit confusing to potential people going on Umrah or potential people going on Hajj. The Saudi Arabian government has created something called Nusuk. What exactly is Nusuk?
So Nusuk, there's two Nusuks. So you have Nusuk app for Umrah. That was launched, and I would like to proudly say, at our event last November in London for the UK and European markets. And that's where you download the app and you can, provided you've got a visa, an active visa, which is any of the e-visa, visa, or the Umrah visa, you'll be able to activate it. Obviously, if you're going for the visa on arrival, it'll activate after you've received that visa. And that's for you to book the Umrah slot and the visitation to the Rowda in the Prophet's Mosque. Whereas you've got the other Umrah Nusuk Hajj, and that's strictly for Hajj packages only. And this year it was launched for the UK and 58 other countries around the world, namely the Western countries, to book Hajj packages only. So Nusuk Hajj is for Hajj only. Nusuk is for Umrah.
Okay, that's very, very clear. So there are two Nusuks. One is for Umrah, one is for Hajj. So the Umrah one is basically what you use to book slots so that you can carry out certain things, right, whilst on your Umrah, correct? So you mentioned the Rowda and going to pray in that area where the green carpet is, for those of you who have been there, of the Prophet's Mosque, peace be upon him. But if I wanted to, Rashid Bhai, if I wanted to get an Umrah visa, right? And this is something that Yassine Chowdhury started to explain. What are my options to get an Umrah visa? Right, I'm a British citizen. What are my options to get an Umrah visa? Can I go online and get an e-visa before I even land in Saudi Arabia in advance?
So Umrah visas done by a reputable and licensed agent, such as our brother here, Yassine Chowdhury from Tarbiyah Tours. So I'll just plug him in as well. I'm sure he's listening in, as well as many other licensed companies. And the advantage there is that you're tapping into their experience, expertise. It is a little bit costly than, say, for example, an e-visa or a visa on arrival, but it saves a lot of hassle. They provide you a full package, and that package will have its duration for how many days you want to stay in the kingdom. It takes away the hassle of booking accommodation, the slots for Umrah, the other niggly things such as transfers to and from hotels, etc. Whereas the other visas, such as e-visa and visa on arrival, you're left to your own devices to do all of the above.
Okay, let me go to Yassine Chowdhury on this, and he can make the sell for the tour operators. So Yassine, let's just say I want to go on a budget Umrah, right? I'm on a budget. Let's just say I've got £1,000, and what will £1,000 get me, for example? Can I go and fulfill the Umrah in Masjid al-Haram in Makkah, and also spend a few days in Masjid Nabawi as well, the Prophet Mosque, peace be upon him, in Medina. Can I get that done? And why can't I just DIY it? Like, I can just go online now, get my e-visa. I can book the flights through Saudi or from British Airways or whoever flies to Jeddah. And I can also book the train as well, the Haramain train from Jeddah airport all the way down to Makkah. Why do I need a tour operator now? What's the benefit of that?
A very good question. Let me just clarify something. There's a clear distinction between a holiday and a religious rituals which you're doing for the sake of Allah. For example, if you're going on holiday, you can do whatever you want to do. But when you come to a religious tour for the sake of Allah, you're going for Umrah, you need to know the protocols, the rituals accurately. Because if you're going to break certain ones, especially if it's a pillar, you have to give a sacrifice, you have to fast, or you have to redo the Umrah again. And same goes for the Hajj. So therefore, there's a clear distinction between going on a holiday and going on a religious. And if I just may go back to the point of having £1,000, can I complete an Umrah with £1,000? Yes, you can. How many days? 7 days, depending on the season. If it's a low season, off school holiday, just to give you an example, you can take your passport, and with the knowing that prerequisites, you know you have to do Umrah properly, and then you land in Jeddah, you wear the ihram, you do your intentions properly in the plane, you go to Makkah, you stay, say, for example, 4 days in Makkah, 3 days in Medina. To do Umrah, it will take you between 2 hours to 2.5 hours, maximum 3. You go to Medina, then you come back. Train will cost you about £40, and from Makkah to Medina is about £40. From Medina back to Jeddah, another £40. All done, less than £1,000. But do you need a group guide? Do you need a leader who can explain to you? It will remove the difficulties you have. Maybe if it's a single individual, that's different. But if they're going with the families the first time, or there's some elderly individuals, there are scooters availability, certain places you need to go, certain places for the ziyaras to get more understanding, more feeling of the place. And you want to go to Umrah to redeem yourself, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just not just ticking the box that I've just been to Umrah. Rather, you want to come back, develop your iman, your character, your morality, and getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing things more than what you used to do prior to going to Umrah. So give and take. Depends on the person's budget. If he's educated on Umrah, he goes alone. If they are not, they want to rely on Google to do their Umrah, then I would say no, stick to operator, bona fide operator.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and obviously you're going to be backing up the operator because you are one yourself. But I hear you. You're giving genuine advice as well, because somebody who has done Umrah many times before, I'm very confident of going myself. I'm happy to book the flight and book the train myself, and also book the hotels and do a DIY Umrah and probably save a bit of money. But you're absolutely right, Yasin Bhai, because you got to give your rituals, especially if you're going for the first or second time on Umrah. It's really important to make sure that you have somebody competent with you that can guide you through those rituals, guide you through the hustle and bustle of the situation in Makkah. It can get quite busy during peak periods, especially with Christmas coming up in December, and also during the half-term holidays. It can get very busy. It's nice to have a guide that can show you not just how to do the rituals, but also to take you around the holy sites, and so that you can build that appreciation for the time and the experience of the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ, and what they went through at those times. I mean, I remember, for example, reading about just the anatomy of the Kaaba, subhanallah. And when you're doing the tawaf, the circumambulation around the Kaaba, people don't realize that this is not just a structure that you're walking around, but if you have a guide with you that can explain to you how this structure was built, and the energy and effort that Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail alayhi salam, when they were commanded to build this by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you look at the structure and it has different corners and it has different bits on it. It's a really interesting topic. And I remember reading about the Kaaba, sitting right in front of it. I had a book with me, and it was amazing. And the tears just start flowing out of your eyes. And then you have this semicircular structure around the Kaaba, and you wonder, what is this semicircle that's around the Kaaba? And then you start to read about the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, and when she said that when she said to the Prophet, peace be upon him, I want to pray in the Kaaba, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, pray in this area, the Hatim, and it is as though you are praying in the Kaaba. People don't know that, so subhanallah, and it's something. These are the kind of things that a guide will teach you, Yasin Bhai.
Yes, the guide's job is not just to teach you the Umrah, the rituals, but rather to filtration of your beliefs, your rituals, filtration, because sometimes when we do an action, we may have that certain action embedded because of the certain culture or the traditions that we follow. So therefore, there needs to be filtration to show that that particular action, does it really come from Prophet ﷺ, or was it from someone else? So that's the guide job. But the guide has to be someone who's learned, has to know his Arabic, as well as his fiqh, as well as his aqidah, and then he can explain. If the guy doesn't have those qualities, then unfortunately he can't guide anyone else other than not even himself.
What you're saying is, not only Tom, Dick, and Harry can be a guide. There has to be a certain, minimum bar. And I hear you.
No, because he has.
Yeah, man, I totally get it. So let me go to Rashid Mogradia again. So Rashid Bhai, from the Council of British Hajis, mashallah. So you mentioned that the CBH UK, the Council of British Hajis UK, have been instrumental in working and partnering with Nusuk and the Saudi government last year to actually launch the app for the Hajj 2023 season that we've just seen. And you actually went on Hajj in the season. What was your experience like, and what can we look forward to next year in terms of the experience of people going on Hajj getting even easier, hopefully?
So one thing to clarify was the Nusuk app for Umrah that we worked to launch in the UK, and we provided feedback and support to enhance the new system, which is a Nusuk Hajj. In terms of actually being on the ground, it was actually an honor and privilege to be there as an official Hajj guide. There are no more tour operators involved in taking pilgrims over for Hajj now, and you have to rely on competent guides. And it was an opportunity for us to really put into practice all the years of experience that we've had when we've been out there, and flourish and help British pilgrims through their journey of a lifetime. And it was an eye-opener because we hadn't been for Hajj since COVID, and to see that the Saudi authorities had put a big investment in developing Mashair, most certainly Mina, a complete transformation, it was brilliant. However, for many, it was just the first time that they'd been out for Hajj. They couldn't really compare or see the difference. So for many, it was like, oh, we're in Mina. And to that, we replied, just wait until you get to Arafah and Muzdalifah to really appreciate what you got in Mina. And they did. So when they got back, after being grilled in the desert heat in Arafah and seeing the limitations of Mina, they really did appreciate. And they have, from the simplest of things I can say, the enhancements to the toilet facilities, we now have European toilets. So those who obviously complained previously, that's one of the many enhancements that's gone through. But alhamdulillah,
Heading down in that awkward position. That's brilliant. Great news.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Hey, man, that's the most hygienic toilet there is, so don't knock it.
It's true, it's good for the colon, that particular position, but let's not talk about that right now. We're talking about Hajj and Umrah. But Rashid Bhai, just answer one last question. Did they have cold Zamzam, or was it warm?
They had cold Zamzam, obviously. It's on tap. It's on tap, and it's available right across the season, Hajj and Umrah. Alhamdulillah.
That's great news. Well, gentlemen, Yasin Chowdhury and also Rashid Mogradia from CBH UK. Rashid, if people wanted to learn more about the licensed Hajj and Umrah tour operators, where can they go to learn more from a reputable source?
Just go onto our website, cbhuk.org. If you look at the last 3 posts, it looks at the new visa system. We've got a comparison chart there as well, make it very easy for you to pick the selected one. And if there's any questions, just contact us via the Contact Us button on our website.
Jazakallah khair. cbhuk.org is the place to go. Thank you so much, Rashid Magradi and Rashid Chowdhury. Thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of your Friday. This is Friday Night Live. Zassab, any highlights from today's show? Any key takeaways?
I think the Pakistani discussion was a good one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right? It always gets out the, raises the temperature a little bit, right, in the conversation, because there's a lot happening.
It's
It is
sad.
sad. There's a lot happening in Pakistan, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
It's quite sad. But, we just hope that things change, really.
And I think one thing we can also do is make dua, right? I mean, if people can't do anything else, and you can't send money to NGOs in Pakistan or charities, etc., just remember the people in your du'as, just like we do around the world. I think the people of Pakistan need that, and if we can do more than that, that would be even better. But at least we should make dua and keep them in our memories and in our prayers and our thoughts as well, because I'm sure that's the beginning of something bigger. And also, Zaffar, don't forget, listeners, we're going to be talking about transgender rights. And this is something that's been bothering me lately. I'm really worried about the fact that a man can suddenly decide they want to be a woman and end up in the same changing room as my daughters. I just find that completely unacceptable. What do you reckon? We'll be talking about this topic next week. Also, I just find it really strange how a man can decide that they're a woman and suddenly end up in the same toilet as one of my daughters who are biologically women. I'm not sure what you think about this, listeners, but it's really concerning me, especially the transgender movement and how it is just taking over the narrative of normality and what we come to expect as normal. That's going to be talked about next week on Friday Night Live. But from me and Zaffar Iqbal here in the studios of Inspire FM, until next week, take care of yourselves. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Coming up next, English Talk Series. Continue listening to Inspire.